Guys, we're going to have a fun episode here with Jason Bond of Bond Trophy Outfitters. We're going to be talking about 3A, 3C, early rifle elk hunt. We're going to be talking about 13A, a giant 38-inch buck that got shot on the archery hunt with Jason. We're going to talk 12B, Kaibab, 13A, 13B deer. We're going to talk general season over-the-counter, Central Arizona units, mule deer tactics and strategies. Before we get to that, I want to thank the sponsors of the podcast. I want to thank GoHunt.com. Cody Nelson, my friend of 20 plus years, is the manager of the GoHunt Gear Shop in the optics department. If you guys have any binocular optics, tripod spotting scopes, rifle scopes, rangefinders, any needs at all when it comes to optics, give Cody a call at 702-847-8747. Also, you can email him at optics@gohunt.com. I get a message every day from someone that Cody has taken care of, and really he's got a great way of making sure everyone understands the decisions and choices that they have in optics and goes through everything very well with them. So you'll love Cody. Give him a call. Thanks to Go Hunt for their sponsorship. I also want to thank KUIU Ultralight Hunting. That's KUIU.com, KUIU.com. That is all of the gear that I use on all of my big game hunts. If you have any questions at all, you can always send me a direct message about KUIU. I'm constantly doing a Q&A on my Instagram answering questions about gear from KUIU customers. I want to thank KUIU Ultralight Hunting for their sponsorship of the podcast. I also want to thank phonescope.com. That's the digiscoping device I use on my phone, my iPhone 10, to get photos and videos. Use the JScott19 promo code. Go to phonescope.com. You're going to save 10%. I also want to thank onxmaps.com. Use the JScott19 promo code. You're going to get a 20% discount there at OnX. OnX Maps, the app that's on your phone, has replaced the handheld GPS for me. I love the fact that you can toggle back and forth just with a touch of a button between topo, aerial, and a hybrid mode. I love the line measuring tool. You can measure in feet, yards, meters, it's miles. It's an incredible tool. There's also the private public land overlay feature. It's just, I use it every day, whether I'm fishing, hunting, or in my real estate business. Go to onxmaps.com, use the JScott19 promo code, save 20%. Guys, love having interaction with you. If you want to send me a message, you can direct message me on Instagram at JScottOutdoors. You can send me an email at jscottoutdoors@gmail.com. Thanks for all of your support. Let's get right to the episode.
Welcome to the J. Scott Outdoors podcast, guys. Today's going to be a fun episode with our friend Jason Bond of Bond Trophy Outfitters. Jason, how you doing?
Good, Jay. Good. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, for sure. I know you're getting ready to head to the Strip. The last time we talked was kind of before elk season, and if I remember right, your wife had a early rifle 3C tag, and then I want to say you had maybe a 23 hunter or something. Fill us in on elk season, how 3C was, and let's talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, well, before that 3A 3C hunt I had, my wife and I both drew it, the early rifle bull tag that started before that archery hunt. But I was up on a 13A hunt with an archery hunter I had there, and then had a scouting package going in 13B. So summer started off kind of full bore, and with all the scouting and stuff up on the Strip, I didn't get as much scouting as I wanted to in 3A 3C. Then we had some family stuff come up to where my wife had to donate her tag over to Outdoor Experience for All. So a young girl, I think she was 11 years old, got the tag she donated back in, and ended up killing her first 6x6 bull. So that was a really neat deal. And bottom line on that hunt, yeah, it was a good deal. Big smile on her face, and yeah, it was I guess it worked out as good as it possibly could for my wife not being able to go on the hunt. That's for sure.
What were so you arrived in 3C, and of all the units in Arizona that you know very, very well, 3C was kind of one of them that you didn't know as well. Just curious your thoughts when you hit the ground there, and how things were looking. I know before the season we had talked about potentially maybe those bigger bulls wouldn't show up off the White Mountain Apache and that early rifle hunt. The bigger bulls would definitely survive and maybe not get shot. What was your take?
That's pretty much how it went for me. I know there was definitely a few good bulls or great bulls killed on the hunt. Not as big as I thought would get killed. I didn't kill one myself. I saw maybe 2 bulls that I thought would break 370, but nothing significantly bigger than that. And it just wasn't what I was looking for, so I went home empty-handed. It was strange because I got into some glassing country. I ran spotlights at night. I chased bugles, mornings and evenings. Like I say, glassed, hit the flats, hit the pinyon juniper country, hit the top along the res fence, and then the big canyon country over by Black Canyon Lake, where I could glass quite a bit. And it almost felt like a November hunt how it started out. 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 bulls standing together, not bugling, feeding like it was November. So kind of like we thought about, and yeah, I never laid eyes on a bull that just yanked my chain. Chased a lot of bulls in the trees. I got on one good bull I got a glimpse of that I think could have been a real big bull, but I just couldn't see him good enough in that thick stuff, and he got across to the res, so didn't really have anything there with him.
How much of just kind of, feeling like a November late hunt, how much of that do you think is attributed to a very, very lackluster and dry monsoon as opposed to other years where, we have really good monsoons and, it seems like everything's firing on all cylinders?
Yeah, I think that had a lot to do with it, but like you said earlier, I don't know a lot about 3A3C. I wasn't really wanting an elk tag, neither was my wife, so we were wanting to sit out. So we did 23 South early rifle, 3A3C second choice, ended up with the tag with 10 bonus points. So, luck of the draw, and something I just threw in the dark. But, not knowing the unit before and talking to everybody that's been in there, it sounds like that's one of the going units where things can get pretty crazy. But I didn't really talk to any archery hunters to see if it did pick up quite a bit. The bugling wasn't bad. It wasn't great. Some mornings you'd have a half hour after daylight. Some mornings you'd get an hour and a half after daylight. Kind of depended on the elevation you were at. We had that full moon that was playing against us on that hunt, so I think that was working against us. But I do think the lackluster of the monsoon, didn't help the situation either on that.
Looking forward, I'm sure you've been just chomping at the bit to get up there and start hunting deer. How is it looking up there on the strip, and what are you thinking for this upcoming hunt?
I think it's looking really good. 13B, to take it back to the archery hunt a little bit and some of the statewide tags that killed, it was about 50-50, as far as statewide tags go, 13A and 13B this year. A couple of the bucks that we were after, hoping to be on for this rifle hunt are obviously harvested now, 2 of them with the statewide tags. I had a scouting package in 13B where we had found a giant buck, and my scouting package guy was able to hunt him by himself with nobody else around. Figured he was mid-270s, and a few weeks ago, looks like Clay was rolling out with some antelope hunters and bumped into the buck, and they ended up harvesting that buck, so that one's kind of off the list for us. And then a few more on the archery hunt got taken out of there, but there's still going to be some phenomenal bucks in B. When we were hunting archery in A, I think A is what I'm really looking forward to on the rifle hunt this year. There's going to be no moon. It's a later hunt, and I only know of 2 good bucks that were killed. We killed one giant typical pushing 38 inches wide. No cheaters, no anything on him, so just a gorgeous buck. But yeah, I think the hunts are going to be great. The only thing I'm not looking forward to is a lack of moisture. With that comes this camera usage thing that always stirs up a debate about, whether cameras are good or not. But, guys are going to be able to play the cameras really, really well this year on the hunt, which is going to crowd everybody up on the better bucks. For guys that want to, drop their standards a little bit, still kill a buck of a lifetime, I think they can have a great hunt as long as they stay away from the top, 5 or 6 bucks in the unit. They're going to just have an awesome time.
So with it being really dry, for those out there listening, what you're saying, reading between the lines, is that, since it's dry, those deer are just pounding water, and so all the cameras out there are gathering a lot of intel and data, and so you'll have a lot of, everyone knowing about the same bucks, whereas on years where, we get those late October, early November rains and snows and some of that stuff, it kind of spreads them out. You don't anticipate the deer being very spread out this year?
Not at all. I was up there last week checking cameras and glassing and running stuff, and there's really not any change to speak of from basically September on. Actually August on. I mean, the same bucks are on the same waters. There's a couple that have moved, but the rut should be kicking up hopefully within a week or so, and maybe some bucks will get to moving. But there's really no pockets of water anywhere that are going to draw deer to them, like the trick tanks and dirt tanks that are still holding water.
Are most of the dirt tanks up there dry?
The smaller ones are. The bigger ones, that have got some work done on them, and fixed the bottoms and stuff, they're still holding water. A bunch of the ranchers went in with some tractors and equipment over the last month, and they're blowing a bunch of dirt tanks out and digging deep. So I think, getting those ready for when it does start raining again, maybe they got those fixed and they can start catching the water better. But yeah, there's definitely some trick tanks that are dry, some drinkers, some cattle troughs that are dry, and then lots of dirt tanks are dry. So it's really it's going to concentrate the deer. It's going to concentrate some of the hunters. So yeah, we'll see how it goes. But the feed's starting to diminish up there. I was really hoping to have some kind of moisture just because of what we went into in the spring and summer this year, and it stayed beautiful all through the archery hunt. I mean, the feed looked good still with no moisture and no monsoon, but right now is when it's really starting to look pretty bleak up there.
With that being said, having the moisture year and, the winter moisture that everyone was so excited about, which created great antlers, looking forward, projecting, obviously a bunch of bucks are going to get killed in the next, couple of weeks in the seasons in 13A and 13B. How do you look at the forecast for even as far out as next year with having a really lackluster summer and monsoon? How does that translate, do you think, into antler growth next year? Or do you think that if we could get a, wet winter cycle and get some good snows and good timely storms just one after another, do you think we'd be totally fine looking at the forecast for the antler size next year up there?
Yeah, I think we'll be completely fine. The good thing with Arizona is that deadline is that second Tuesday of June every year, so we can see what the winter does and what the spring does before you apply. And for a guy like you with a lot of points and others out there with 17, 18, 19, 20 points plus, I mean, you've really got to pay attention, especially on a year like this where they're not necessarily going to go into winter as healthy as they did last year, or as healthy on a normal year. I mean, we just had the highest or the lowest rainfall in recorded history for monsoons in northern Arizona this year. So they're not going to go into winter as healthy as possible. But if we do get, I think an average winter is going to be just fine, just because of how good they were going into the dry period this year, and with the amount of moisture we had in the feed, I think it'll carry those deer over if some feed starts popping up, maybe on some early winter type stuff. But this rut may take a toll on quite a few of these bucks if they don't start planting some decent feed.
Yeah. You mentioned a 38-inch wide giant buck in 13A. I assume that was an archery buck?
It was, yeah. A hunter of mine, Craig Van Arsdale, was able to harvest that buck on day 4 this year on that hunt. And I had found him before the season started in an area where I didn't have any cameras, and kind of went in there a week ahead of time, and I glassed him up with a few other bucks, and just dropped my jaw on the size of this thing. One of the biggest frame deer I've ever seen. No cheaters, no eye guards, no anything. Just a clean 4-point frame, which is unfortunate he didn't have any eye guards, but yeah, just a giant deer. Carried 44 inches of mass, almost just short of 38 inches. I think it was 37 5/8 wide, outside spread. Wow. Just a giant. So we almost had him a couple times opening day. Blew a couple stalks. Didn't see him on Saturday. Didn't see him on Sunday. And then I glassed him up Monday morning, and took about 11 hours for the wind to get right, him to stand up from his bed. He was bedded all day. We could see him bedded, but just not in the right spot to put a stalk on him. And so we waited for him to get up at 5:15, and Craig got into about a 12-yard shot on him. And wow, shoot, the rest is history on that one. But yeah, just a phenomenal buck. I think he wrote an article for Eastman's bow hunting journal, and it's going to be on the cover of that, I think, this next issue. But yeah, it's just awesome. A phenomenal buck. A little over 20 inches on the G2s. Just a monster.
Incredible. I know the Kaibab, if it's not already done, it's just about to be done there on the first hunt. What are you hearing as far as bucks harvested? How was that hunt up there on the Kaibab?
You know, from what I heard, it was really good. I didn't get a lot of time up there. The 12B hunt, there's some guys up there, and just the last 2 days, I think our temperature dropped here to 1 degree this morning. So I think that's helping those deer come off a little bit. They were seeing anywhere from 5 to 15 does the first few days of the hunt. Now they're up to seeing, 40 to 50, 60 deer a day in 12B. So they're definitely starting to move. The late hunt should be phenomenal in there. I've heard of a giant buck getting killed out of there 3 days ago or so. I think Sam Derringer or somebody had something to do with that, but it was a great big buck. And then 12A West has produced a couple that I've heard of that have been just great deer too. So I'm looking forward to that late hunt. I'll get over there after the 13A hunt, and we got 4 guys up there on the late 12B, 12A West hunts, one on the 12A East. So we'll kind of be all over the mountain up there.
Gotcha. While I've got you, I get a lot of questions, guys with these, November mule deer tags and some of these, 17s, 18s, 20s, even some of these, desert units and just some of these random tags, 22s, 21s, and not known for the trophy deer. But guys, asking me on my Instagram, guys sending me questions like, what are the tactics we use for those deer? You don't talk enough about the deer that are, south of the Colorado River and, that type of stuff. What would you tell guys that, have some of these general deer season, general mule deer tags in some of these central units and even down south? I mean, as far as tactics, strategies, does anything change in your book, or, how do you approach those hunts?
It doesn't change a lot for me from that North Rim stuff to the stuff in the center part of the state, or even southern units of that. I try to glass as much as possible. I was fortunate to go down on the 22 youth hunt this year and spend some time there at the camp. One of my good friends from California came over with his 10-year-old daughter, and opening day we shot a nice 4-point in 22 there. I think we saw 21 bucks opening morning. I think we saw another 8 or 9 that evening. And then after she killed, we stayed and helped some other kids out in camp, hung out with some great people. I think one of your friends, Chris Tanner, he was down there with his kid. Just a phenomenal time down there at that 23 youth camp. It was 23, 22, but I think on any given day, I had glassed up anywhere from 15 to 25 bucks in those units. But again, I did it just based on what, the way the weather was. It was dry again, so I put water within a mile of me and get up as high as possible and basically not move and just get the glass in those north faces, east faces, catch a little bit of sun right at first light. But I think it's a lot, I've been reading a lot of your posts lately about glassing those north and east faces. That's what I like to do also. A lot of guys go nuts because I like to have the sun in my face. I like to have the wind in my face. And I hear, from hunters that I take and other guides that I've been with that, I want the sun at my back. I want to be able to see good. And I said, well, you're looking the wrong way. You got to put the sun in your face. And it really works out. I mean, a lot of truth in what you've been posting on the glassing tips. I like to look into the sun. I think you find bigger animals. I think some of the younger bucks and bulls will be out in the sunlight a little bit longer than the bigger ones. But if you want to find a lot and bigger animals, you need to be looking into the sun. That gives you looking at the shady side of the hills, and that's pretty much what I did down there. I do a lot of hunting in 10 and 18 and 17 and 19, little bit, quite a bit in 8 also on the over-the-counter hunts and elk hunts, obviously. But there's some phenomenal bucks in that country. There's been plenty of bucks killed over 200 inches. I mean, it's just a matter of getting out there. They don't obviously grow on trees, not near as many as the North Rim, but if you get out there and hunt hard, get a little luck on your side, I mean, you can definitely stir something up like that. But you got to put yourself where the feed is. You got to put yourself where the water is. If you're not, then you're not into deer.
Yeah, I think I appreciate you saying that about the stuff. I've been, a lot of times I kind of take for granted what we've done for so long, and it's just kind of second nature. So I've kind of been trying to break it down a little bit, and gotten some flack from a few guys that are like, oh, of course that's what you do. And I come at it from a different perspective of trying to help people become more successful. And a lot of the listenership, we've got a lot of really advanced and expert type guys, and then we've got a lot of guys in the middle and a lot of new guys that don't know. And so I get people saying, well, what are the tactics? And it's like glass, and they're like, yeah, but what else? And I'm like, that's really what we do. And it's fun to hear you say, Jason, you lean on your optics, and you know that if it's dry, they're going to be fairly close to water. Get up on a high point and look around for a day. Spend half a day looking in one area and half a day looking in another. And if you've got a buddy or two and can spread guys out and say, okay, how many do you see? And one guy out of the 3 will probably see a lot more. And then you go, okay, now let's focus kind of in that area, and let's kind of bring everybody in and kind of refine our search for. Now we'll sit on different knobs, but we'll be kind of in that area where, maybe 1 or 2 guys saw a bunch of deer. Maybe 1 guy struck out. We'll kind of rule that area out, kind of focus and bring it back to the center. But wouldn't you agree, like, you've been doing this a long, long time. There's no magic. It's just a matter of spending time looking and looking, like you said, in the areas where you have your higher percentage of chance of seeing a deer. Yeah, you're glassing with the sun at your back in the afternoon. Yeah, you can see really good, but you're looking on the wrong side of the hill where 90% of the animals are on the opposite side of the hill that you're looking at. And so, yes, you may see a few deer, but you flip that around, put the sun in your face, and look at the shady slopes. Even if you're not even as good a glasser, at least you're looking where the animals spend most of their time.
That's the bottom line. It's happened to me this year. Hey, we gotta, we're looking into the sun. Well, yeah, heck yeah, we're looking into the sun. We need to fight that sun to look into that shade as hard as you can. And you can use trees. When you're next to a tree or a bush or whatever you got there, a lot of times you can back up from that bush and catch yourself some shade. And be able to see a little bit better and get angles by moving around the shade of that tree, looking into the sun. Wouldn't
you agree too, Jason? Like that doesn't mean that sometimes you don't look at some of the west facing and some of the south facing slopes, but you're very aware and cognizant of where are those shade areas, where are the thicker brush. I mean, they can be on an open hillside, that's a west facing, getting tons of sun. But if you say, okay, if I was going to shade up and I was a deer or elk on that slope, where would I be? Well, most of the time when you start looking at where the shady areas are on some of those west-facing, south-facing exposure slopes, all of a sudden you're like, oh, there's a deer. I mean, and the same thing when you're looking into the shade, when you're looking at some of the north and east-facing slopes, I mean, it's sometimes it becomes so predictable. It's like, okay, the weather's steady, blue sky, bluebird days, you can almost guarantee that within an hour of sunup, they're going to be in the shady spots. And if you start looking into the shade at any time of the day, you start going, oh, there's a deer, there's a cow elk bedded, there's a bull up feeding, there's a buck, there's 3 bucks. One of them's bedded and 2 are feeding, and it's like, yeah, now you're looking where they're at and where they spend the majority of their time. Your percentage of seeing stuff goes way, way up.
It'll go way up, and it's like elk hunting. You got these big meadows that these elk will come out in at night. Well, they're, minus private land where they might stay out there a little longer. Most of those animals in those big meadows, those big openings, are going to be getting into those trees pretty early, and they're going to be heading towards shade. That's where you got to look. So yeah, it works out great. So yeah, the tactics on glass, and I mean that's pretty much what I do. I try to look into the sun. And keep the wind blowing in my face, and that's not for scent control. That's just because nobody in their right mind, including an animal, wants to be blown away off a hill on the windy side of the hill.
Yeah, so, it's almost when there's a little bit of wind. I almost like a little bit of wind because you actually can rule out a lot of areas, and all of a sudden they become very, very predictable. Get that stiff wind, get it in your face, and you know that where you're looking is the lee side of the hill. And those animals are going to be trying to seek shelter. Yeah, it's not as comfortable to glass, and your binoculars are shaking, and you've got to have a steady tripod and all that. But all of a sudden, you shrink your window up of places where you need to look, and you become very efficient. I know this over this next month and a half is one of your favorite times of the year with, rutting mule deer and big giant deer and all of that. But then following that up, you also have, you do quite a bit of OTC, archery, December and January, deer hunts, both mule deer and coos. Talk a little bit about that. And,
I do. Go ahead.
Yeah, just talk about it.
Yeah, I like those a lot. I think they're fun hunts. I think you can get away from people. There's obviously spots that are more popular than others, and you can go to those spots and see deer, but you're going to see, 10 or 15 other people. There's spots that I go to that, sometimes for 7, 8, 10 days, I won't see another vehicle, won't see another person. So it's almost like you're out there illegally hunting because there's just nobody out there. It just feels weird, and a lot of that's in that tougher country to hunt that people don't like to hunt because it's a little thicker with juniper pinyon cover, not as open, not as easy to see deer. But when you see them, I mean, you can run into some older age class animals. I killed a buck for myself in January this year. I think it was 183. It was in a spot that nobody goes to, and kind of had it to myself, and just a fun time. So I like those hunts a lot. The coos deer, the same thing. The rut really seems to be getting going mid-January, and the mule deer a little bit before that. You can have some good rut activity around that Christmas time, and sometimes even before Christmas. So it's always fun to be out there that time of year. And when I'm hitting new spots and checking new stuff, to go back on your glassing thing, a lot of times what I'll do is look for animals, not just the animal I'm looking for, but if I find cattle out there, if I find burros, if I find horses, I know a deer can survive there because there's got to be water somewhere around. Even if I don't know there is water, if I see cattle, I know a deer can be there. So then, it makes me glass harder, makes me look harder into that area where I see living animals that need to drink water. So
very good.
That helps.
Very good point.
Yeah. It helps me out a bunch, especially that stuff that I don't know that well, and I'm like, man, I wonder if that tank's got water, because you can see it all on a map or whatever, and you just wonder if this stuff has water without checking it. As long as you see cattle, as long as you see horses or burros or something, there's water close, and if there's burros or horses or cattle there, deer can be there. So that kind of puts me in the right spot, and I know I'm not just pissing in the wind trying to find a deer that doesn't exist because there's not a livable environment for them with water, because I'm seeing other animals. So that helps me a lot on the it helps me a lot on the over-the-counter stuff if I'm spreading out on some new country and trying to get away from people, and because during the rut you just never know what you're going to see. You just need to find the does and then dig deep, and the buck's going to be somewhat close, if not on top of them. So That's a fun
And that's
thing.
one of the things too. Yeah, that's fun. Probably hunting during the rut. What you were probably about to say is, those OTC hunts. I mean, people need to realize you're on most situations you're getting to hunt those deer, and specifically mule deer. You're getting to hunt them pretty much during the peak of the rut. I mean, you've got your strip deer and your kaibab deer that people need to understand kind of rut in November. But then most of all our state, the other deer in the lower elevations in the central Arizona, southern Arizona, they rut all of January. So you're getting to hunt in the absolute peak of the rut. Yeah, you're hunting with a bow, but, as far as guys getting out and taking new people hunting, I mean, it's a great opportunity because usually you get to see quite a bit of action because they're out there chasing, bucks are chasing does.
Exactly. And you just, like I say, you never know what you're going to see. I mean, you can take it back. There was that giant buck killed down by Yuma, pushing 300 inches. Out by Seligman, there's been several bucks over 220, 230 killed. Up in 9, there's been several bucks in that 220, 230, 250 range killed. They're around. And that's what's so fun about that over-the-counter hunt is you go out, and if you hit a new spot and hit some different stuff, pick up some does, you just never know what's going to walk out of those trees because the genetics are there. It's just you got to find that age class and that buck that slipped through for several years.
Yeah, for sure.
So it's a lot of fun.
Yeah. Anything out there? Any new gear? Any new optics? Anything that you're high on or gear wise this season that is new to you or anything you've got your eye on out there?
I was hunting that 13A buck and I didn't have a set of BTXs. I've got the ATX 95 and 65, but I don't have the BTX adapter for it. The hunter I had the BTX adapter, so it was really the first time I got the field to use it. So I was kind of switching back and forth with that in my 15s, and that Monday that I glassed that deer and we killed him, I had glass with my 15 starting out, and then I switched over to the BTX on my tripod, and I picked that deer up right away. And I don't know that I would have picked that deer up with my 15s. Now I've used the big eyes in the doctors for years, and I'll tell you that BTX is a game changer because the hike I was doing to get up on top of this mountain was just miserable with, carrying those doctors up there and having that, I already have my 95 with me. So that BTX is nothing to throw in the pack. I thought that was a big game changer for me. So, that's now in my pack. And then I broke down yesterday over at Bull Basin and picked up one of those inReach things because I guess I've just never thought I needed one. And I thought, well, I got to get one of those. So anyway, I've been playing with that yesterday and today, and that thing's pretty amazing too, because I usually turn on my satellite phone when I go up there, and the cost of the satellite phone to turn on, I mean, it's, this Garmin inReach thing is I think the way to go. I'll see how it works on these next few hunts, but it seems a lot less expensive, and with the app on your phone, you can text off your phone to all your contacts and send right off to it. And if your other hunters in camp all have that inReach and you're out of radio service, too far from each other, just can't contact each other, you can at least send each other texts and be in touch. So,
yeah, I mean, you're going to really like it. And I was just going to say, if you don't have the phone app, get the phone app. It sounds like you already do, because, you in essence have the ability to text, at the speed that you normally do on your phone. I used them on my Dall sheep hunts, and it just works fantastic, relative to what else is out there. And, I have a sat phone too, but definitely being able to text. You can even send out photos on that, which is incredible.
Really?
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that, and that's a great tool for sure. And the BTX is one of those things that most people that look through it. The only gripe I have with the BTX, well, there's two gripes. One is it's angled, which I prefer straight. But a lot of guys love the angled in a spotting scope, and it doesn't bother them in a binocular. And then the fact that it's not a variable power, it's just a fixed power. But, from a weight standpoint alone, it's pretty incredible when you're running the, 65 millimeter BTX, you're at like 4.14 pounds. And when you're running the full 95 PTX, you're only at 6.5 pounds, which, your doctors alone were 12 pounds, plus the tripod. You had to carry a heavy-duty tripod that was 12 pounds, too. Now you can just kind of carry a normal tripod. So, I mean, for guys like you and me that are, we're older than we used to be. Let's just leave it at that. Starting to feel it a little bit. Cutting 10, 15 pounds out of just your optic and tripod is a big deal.
Yeah. No, I'm really impressed with them. I'm not used to an angled. I said ATX earlier, but I guess it's the STX. It's straight. I've never had an angled thing before. So up on that hill, it was tough to get used to, and especially tough to figure out where I was even looking, because my head was not looking where I normally look.
Right.
But once I got used to it, once I got used to it, I think it was okay. I still need a lot of work behind that angled thing, but I think the clarity's great, and for the weight savings, to me, it's a no-brainer with that. But yeah, it's great. Those are the two pieces of equipment I picked up this year that I think are going to come in real handy for me.
Jason, I know that you're busy and you got to leave for the strip tomorrow, so I'll let you tell the listeners how they can get a hold of you. Obviously, guys, he's headed deer hunting, so you'll have to realize that he may be gone for a while. But go ahead and tell the listeners how they can get a hold of you, and I'll link it up in the show notes for you.
Yeah, best way to get a hold of me is just through the phone. You can text or call or whatever, and sometimes, like Jay just said, I'll be out of town, not in service, but my phone number is 928-637-8378, and I've got an Instagram and Facebook under Bond Trophy Outfitters. You can send me messages and stuff there. I'm not 100% savvy on social media and stuff, so sometimes it takes me a while to get back to you on there, but occasionally I'll have it figured out and be able to get back to you pretty quick on it.
Awesome, man. Thanks for spending some time with us. Have a great time. We'll have to catch up on the backside and after all the deer hunts. And you always do a great job. I'm looking forward to seeing the giants you guys knock down this year. So God bless.
All right, we're looking forward to it. All right, God bless. Take care.